Thomas Bennett had built a tech empire worth billions, but tonight he just wanted a quiet walk. His life was filled with board meetings, investments, and constant pressure. The evening walks through Washington Park gave him space to think. But when he saw the two identical little girls on that bench with their suitcases, every other thought vanished from his mind. They were clearly twins. Same strawberry blonde hair, same blue eyes, same frightened expressions. They couldn't be more than 7 or 8 years old. It was nearly dark, and the temperature was dropping. Where were their parents? Thomas approached slowly, not wanting to scare them. When he spoke, he kept his voice gentle and calm. The smaller girl, he would later learn was Grace, burst into tears. The other one, Sophie, looked at him with desperate, protective eyes. "Please don't call the police," Sophie begged. "They'll split us up." Thomas's heart broke. He sat down on the grass in front of the bench, giving them space. "I'm not going to call anyone yet," he said. "But I need to understand what's happening. Why are you alone? Where are your parents?" Sophie looked at Grace, then back at Thomas. The story came out slowly, painfully. Their mother died when they were 5. Car accident. Their grandmother took them in, loved them, raised them. Then 3 weeks ago, Grandma had a stroke. She died in the hospital while the girls waited in the lobby. "They put us in a group home," Sophie explained, her voice small. "But yesterday they said they found foster families for us. Different families. Different parts of Denver. They are splitting us up tomorrow morning." "So we ran," Grace added, her voice barely a whisper. "We took our suitcases and left before breakfast. We've been here all day. We don't know where else to go." Thomas felt anger rising in his chest, not at the girls but at a system that would separate siblings. He'd heard about problems in foster care, but never understood the reality until now. These children had already lost everything. And the system wanted to take away the one thing they had left, each other. "Listen to me carefully," Thomas said, looking into both their eyes. "I'm not going to let anyone split you up. My name is Thomas Bennett. I'm going to help you. But first, you're both freezing and hungry. Will you let me take you somewhere warm where we can figure this out?" Sophie studied his face for a long moment. She was young, but she'd learned to read people, to sense danger. Something about this man felt different. Safe. She nodded slowly. Thomas stood up and picked up both suitcases. "There's a cafe 2 blocks from here. It's warm, and they have the best hot chocolate in Denver. We'll go there, get you fed, and then we'll call the right people to help. I promise you, Sophie and Grace, nobody is going to separate you. Not tonight, not ever if I can help it." The girls followed him through the park. Grace slipped her small hand into Sophie's. Both were terrified but also feeling something they hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The parkside cafe was warm and bright when they walked in. The owner, an older woman named Helen, took one look at the twins and immediately brought over hot chocolate and sandwiches without Thomas even ordering. Small communities within big cities still existed, and Helen had run this cafe for 30 years. She knew when children needed help. Sophie and Grace devoured their food. Thomas watched them, calculating his next moves. He pulled out his phone and texted his assistant, Jennifer Carson. Within minutes, she was researching emergency foster care procedures and finding the best family lawyers in Denver. "Tell me more about the group home," Thomas said gently. "Do they know you ran away?" Sophie nodded, swallowing her sandwich. "Probably. Miss Williams, she's the house manager. She probably noticed we were gone at lunch. But she won't really care. There are 20 kids there. 2 less is easier for her." Thomas's jaw tightened. "That's not acceptable. Every child matters." Grace looked up at him with wide eyes. "You really mean that?" "I really mean that," Thomas confirmed. "Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to call a social worker I trust, someone who actually cares about kids. Her name is Beth Anderson. She'll meet us here, and we'll figure out the best way to keep you together. It might mean you have to go back to the group home tonight, but I'll make sure." "No," Sophie interrupted, panic in her voice. "Please, not there. They'll punish us for running." Thomas held up his hand. "Nobody is going to punish you. Beth will make sure of that. But more importantly, I'm going to start the paperwork tonight to become your emergency foster parent. I have a big house, plenty of space, and I can pass all the background checks immediately. If Beth can expedite the process, you could be staying with me as early as next week." The twins stared at him. This man, this stranger, was offering them a home. Together. Why? Sophie asked quietly. "Why would you do this for us?" Thomas thought about his own childhood. He'd grown up in a loving home with 2 parents and a brother. He'd always had everything he needed. These girls had nothing, through no fault of their own. The answer was simple. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said. "Because you deserve to be together. Because every child deserves someone who cares. And because I have the resources to help, so I should use them." Beth Anderson arrived within the hour. She was a veteran social worker, 50 years old with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Thomas had donated to her non-profit organization for years. When he explained the situation, she didn't hesitate. "I can place them in emergency foster care with you temporarily," Beth said after talking with the girls. "But Thomas, this is a big commitment. Twin 7-year-olds need stability, attention, and consistency. Your life is boardrooms and international meetings." "Then I'll change my life," Thomas said simply. "These girls need someone, and I'm here. I'll hire help, I'll rearrange my schedule, I'll do whatever it takes. But they are not getting separated. Not on my watch." Beth smiled. It had been a long time since she'd seen someone with resources actually willing to use them for good. "Okay, let's start the paperwork. Tonight they'll stay at a licensed emergency placement home nearby. But by Friday, if everything checks out, they're yours." Sophie grabbed Thomas's hand. "You promise? You promise we'll stay together?" Thomas looked down at her tear-stained face and made a promise that would change all their lives. "I promise. 1 week from now, you'll both be living in your new home. Together." Friday morning arrived cold and clear. Thomas had barely slept all week, spending every free moment working with Beth Anderson and his lawyer, Patricia Hayes, to navigate the foster care system. The process was complex, designed to protect children, but often slow and bureaucratic. Thomas used every resource at his disposal to expedite things without cutting corners. Patricia sat across from him in his downtown office, reviewing documents. She was one of the best family lawyers in Colorado, a sharp woman in her 50s who had handled everything from divorces to adoptions. "Your background check came back spotless," Patricia said. "No surprise there. Your home inspection passed with flying colors. The financial review shows you can more than provide for the girls. Honestly, Thomas, this is the easiest foster placement paperwork I've ever processed. The only concern is your work schedule." "I've already addressed that," Thomas replied, sliding another document across the desk. "I've hired Rachel Foster, a licensed nanny with 15 years of experience. She's background checked, CPR certified, and available full-time. I've also rearranged my schedule to work from home 3 days a week. Jennifer will handle travel commitments, and I'm delegating more to my executive team." Patricia raised her eyebrows. "You're really doing this?" "I really am." Beth Anderson joined them via video call. Her face appeared on the screen, and she was smiling. "I have good news. The judge approved the emergency placement. As of 3 p.m. today, Sophie and Grace Bennett are officially in your temporary foster care. Congratulations, Thomas." Thomas felt a wave of emotion he hadn't expected. Bennett. "It's standard procedure to use the foster parent's last name during placement," Beth explained. "It helps with school enrollment and medical care. Speaking of which, I've already registered them at Greenwood Elementary. It's 3 blocks from your house, excellent ratings, and the principal is wonderful with foster children." The rest of the morning was a blur of meetings. Thomas met with Rachel Foster to discuss schedules and routines. He ordered beds, clothes, toys, and school supplies. His house, usually minimalist and quiet, was being transformed into a home for children. At 2 p.m., Thomas drove to the emergency placement home where the twins had been staying. Beth met him there with Sophie and Grace. The girls were wearing new clothes that Beth had bought them, simple jeans and bright blue sweaters. When they saw Thomas, their faces lit up. "You came," Sophie said, as if she doubted he would. "I promised, didn't I?" Thomas smiled. "Ready to see your new home." The drive to his house in the Cherry Creek neighborhood took 20 minutes. The girls pressed their faces against the car windows, taking in the tree-lined streets and beautiful homes. When Thomas pulled into his driveway, they gasped. The house was large but not ostentatious, a modern design with lots of windows and a big backyard. Thomas had never thought much about it before. Now, seeing it through their eyes, he realized how overwhelming it might be. "This is where we're going to live," Grace whispered. "This is home," Thomas confirmed. "Come on, let me show you your rooms." He'd prepared 2 bedrooms next to each other, connected by a shared bathroom. Each room was decorated simply but warmly, with twin beds covered in soft blue and green blankets. There were bookshelves waiting to be filled, desks for homework, and windows overlooking the backyard. Sophie walked into one room and immediately burst into tears. Thomas panicked, thinking something was wrong. But Grace was crying too, running her hand over the soft blanket. "Nobody's ever given us something this nice," Sophie managed to say between sobs. "Our own rooms, new beds, everything is so pretty." Thomas knelt down between them. "You deserve all of this and more. This is just the beginning. We're going to build a real life together." Beth watched from the doorway, wiping her own eyes. In 25 years of social work, she'd seen plenty of foster placements. But something about this one felt different. Special. Like it was meant to be. That evening, Rachel arrived to meet the girls. She was warm and funny, instantly putting them at ease. They had dinner together, pizza that Thomas ordered because he didn't know how to cook for children yet. The girls ate quietly, still cautious, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it didn't drop. That night, as Thomas tucked them into their new beds, Sophie looked up at him with serious eyes. "You're not going to change your mind, right? You're not going to send us back?" Thomas smoothed her hair back from her forehead. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. This is your home now, for as long as you need it. I promise." For the first time in months, both girls fell asleep without crying. The first week was harder than Thomas expected. Sophie had nightmares every night, waking up screaming that someone was taking Grace away. Grace was quieter, more withdrawn, watching Thomas constantly as if waiting for him to yell or disappear. They were polite and careful, treating the house like a museum they were visiting rather than a home. Rachel Foster became invaluable during those early days. She taught Thomas basics he'd never considered: what 7-year-olds ate for breakfast, how to braid hair, the importance of bedtime routines. She was patient with the girls, giving them space to adjust while maintaining gentle structure. "They are testing you," Rachel explained one evening after the girls went to bed. "Every foster child does it. They are waiting to see if you're real, if this is permanent. It takes time to build trust." School started on Monday. Thomas drove them himself, walking them into Greenwood Elementary and meeting their teacher, Mrs. Kelly Patterson. She was young and enthusiastic, with kind eyes and a classroom full of bright colors. When she heard the girls' story, she immediately took them under her wing. "We're going to have a great year together," Mrs. Patterson told the twins. "I know everything is new and scary right now, but you're safe here. This classroom is a family." The other children were curious but welcoming. Within an hour, Sophie and Grace were working on art projects with classmates, slowly starting to smile. Thomas watched through the classroom window, feeling proud and terrified at the same time. He was responsible for these 2 lives now. What if he messed it up? The breakthrough came 2 weeks after the girls moved in. Thomas was working from home, his office door open so he could hear if they needed anything. Rachel had the day off, and the girls were doing homework at the kitchen table. Suddenly, Grace appeared in his doorway. "Mr. Bennett," she said quietly. "You can call me Tom," he reminded her gently. "Tom." She tried the name carefully. "Can you help me with my math homework? I don't understand fractions." Thomas closed his laptop immediately. "Of course. Show me what you're working on." They sat together at the kitchen table, and Thomas explained fractions using pizza slices as examples. Grace's face lit up when she finally understood. Sophie joined them, and soon all 3 were laughing as Thomas drew increasingly silly pizza diagrams. "You're actually pretty funny," Sophie said, then looked surprised at her own words, as if she'd forgotten she could laugh. "I have my moments," Thomas grinned. "Now, who wants to help me figure out what's for dinner?" Because I'm great at ordering takeout, but terrible at actual cooking. The girls giggled. It was the first real laughter he'd heard from them. Something shifted in that moment, a small crack in the walls they'd built around their hearts. That night, as Thomas checked on them before bed, Sophie called out to him, "Tom, can you read us a story?" It was the first time she'd asked him for something, the first time she'd used his first name. Thomas grabbed a book from the shelf, one about a bear looking for a home, and read until both girls fell asleep. From that night forward, things slowly improved. The girls started treating the house like their home, leaving toys in the living room and arguing over what to watch on TV. They asked Thomas for help with homework and told him about their days at school. Grace's smiles became more frequent. Sophie's nightmares became less intense. But they still called him Tom, not Dad. And they still kept emotional distance, afraid to love too much in case it was taken away. Thomas knew they needed more time. He could give them that. He could give them all the time in the world. October brought cooler weather and unexpected challenges. Sophie got sick with a bad cold, and her fever spiked to 102 degrees. Thomas stayed up all night with her, applying cool washcloths and monitoring her temperature. Grace refused to leave her sister's side, curling up in Sophie's bed despite Thomas's concerns about her getting sick too. At 3 a.m., Sophie woke up crying. Not from the fever, but from a nightmare. Grandma died in the hospital, she sobbed. What if I die in the hospital too? What if you send me away because I'm sick? Thomas's heart broke. He sat on the edge of her bed and took her small, hot hand in his. Sophie, listen to me. You have a cold, that's all. You're going to be fine. And even if you were seriously sick, I would never, ever send you away. I would be right here, taking care of you, just like I am now. That's what families do. But we're not really family, Sophie said, her voice small. You're just fostering us. You could give us back anytime. Thomas hadn't planned this conversation for 3 a.m. while Sophie had a fever. But some conversations couldn't wait. You're right that the paperwork says foster care, he said carefully. But paperwork doesn't define family. Family is about showing up, about caring, about being there when things are hard. And I'm here, Sophie. I'm not going anywhere. Grace sat up in the bed. Do you promise? Because everyone else left. Mama died. Grandma died. Even Miss Williams at the group home didn't care if we left. I promise, Thomas said firmly. And I want you to know something else. I've asked Patricia, my lawyer, to start adoption paperwork. If you girls want, I'd like to adopt you both officially. Make this permanent. Make us a real forever family. The twins stared at him in the dim light of the bedroom. Sophie's fever-flushed face showed disbelief and hope mixed together. You want to adopt us? Grace whispered. Both of us. Forever. Forever, Thomas confirmed. But only if that's what you want. I know I'm not your dad, and I'm not trying to replace anyone. But I want to be your family. I want you to have a home that can never be taken away. Sophie started crying harder, but this time from relief. Grace threw her arms around Thomas's neck. They sat like that for a long time, the three of them holding each other in the dark bedroom, while Sophie's fever broke and the night slowly turned to morning. From that day forward, everything changed. The girls stopped being careful. They argued with Thomas about bedtime and complained about vegetables. They made messes and had bad days and acted like normal children. They tested boundaries, and Thomas held firm with consistent, loving discipline. They started calling him Dad in small moments, testing the word. Dad, can you help me? Grace would ask about homework. Dad, watch this, Sophie would say before attempting a cartwheel. Each time they said it, Thomas felt his heart grow bigger. Halloween arrived, and Thomas helped them carve pumpkins in the backyard. They made a mess of seeds and pulp, laughing as Rachel took photos. The girls dressed as twin astronauts, and Thomas walked them through the neighborhood for trick-or-treating. Neighbors who knew his story stopped to talk, offering encouragement and support. You're doing a wonderful thing, one older woman said, pressing candy into the girls' bags. Those girls are lucky to have you. But Thomas knew the truth. He was the lucky one. Sophie and Grace had taught him about resilience and hope. They'd shown him what really mattered in life. His billion-dollar company would continue without him in the office every day. But these girls needed him specifically, needed someone to believe in them and fight for them. In November, the adoption paperwork officially started. It would take months to complete, but the process was underway. Beth Anderson visited regularly to check on their progress, and every time she left, she told Thomas the same thing. This is what foster care is supposed to look like. You're changing their lives. But Thomas knew they were changing his life too. He'd spent years building wealth, chasing success, and measuring his worth by business metrics. Now his worth was measured in Sophie's laughter and Grace's growing confidence. It was measured in bedtime stories and homework help and Saturday morning pancakes. For the first time in his life, Thomas Bennett felt like he was doing exactly what he was meant to do. The story spread through Denver faster than Thomas expected. It started when Mrs. Patterson asked if the girls could share their journey during a school assembly about families. Sophie and Grace, now confident and happy, stood in front of 300 students and talked about foster care, about loss, and about finding hope. We thought nobody wanted us, Sophie told the assembly, her voice clear and strong. We thought we'd be alone forever. But then Tom found us in the park, and he didn't look away. He helped us. And now we have a home and a dad and a future. The room erupted in applause. Parents wiped their eyes. But more importantly, the community started asking what they could do to help. A local news station picked up the story, interviewing Thomas with the girls' permission. The piece was simple and honest, focusing on the need for more foster families willing to take siblings. The response was overwhelming. Within days, Thomas's assistant was fielding calls from people wanting to help foster children. Have you ever thought about fostering or adopting? These children need families. Could you be the person who changes a life? Subscribe and comment if you've ever considered opening your home to a child in need. The Cherry Creek community organized a fundraiser for the foster care system, hosting it at the local community center. Over 300 people attended. They raised $75,000 in one night, all directed to programs that kept siblings together in placement. Sophie and Grace attended the event with Thomas, overwhelmed by the support. Strangers came up to them, sharing their own foster care stories, offering encouragement and love. One couple, Robert and Fletcher, approached Thomas with tears in their eyes. We fostered for 20 years, Robert said. Raised 15 children who needed homes. Your story reminded us why it matters. We're coming out of retirement to foster again. Thomas was moved beyond words. What started as helping two girls was creating ripples throughout the community. Other business leaders contacted him, asking how they could contribute. Local law firms offered free legal services for families navigating adoption. Therapists volunteered their time for foster children dealing with trauma. At Greenwood Elementary, Mrs. Patterson organized a sibling solidarity campaign. Students collected supplies for foster care group homes, making care packages with toys, clothes, and books. The girls helped pack hundreds of bags, feeling empowered and purposeful. We're helping other kids like us, Grace explained to Thomas one evening. Kids who are scared and alone. We can show them there's hope. The school also started a mentorship program, pairing foster children with volunteer families who provided support and friendship. The first 3 families signed up specifically because of Sophie and Grace's story. In December, Thomas was invited to speak at a city council meeting about foster care reform. He brought data, stories, and specific policy recommendations. The girls sat in the front row, wearing matching red dresses that Rachel had helped them pick out. The current system splits siblings apart at a rate of 75%, Thomas told the council. That's unacceptable. These children have already lost everything. The last thing they need is to lose each other too. We need more resources for families willing to take multiple children. We need faster processing for qualified foster parents. And we need better support systems once children are placed. The council listened. Several members were moved to tears by Sophie and Grace's presence. By the end of the meeting, they committed to a comprehensive review of Denver's foster care policies. But the most surprising moment came from an unexpected source. A man approached Thomas after the meeting, introducing himself as Greg Peterson, CEO of a major Denver corporation. I followed your story, Greg said. I was in foster care as a child, got separated from my brother. I didn't find him again until I was 30. What you're doing matters, Mr. Bennett. I want to help. My company will match any donation you make to foster care programs, up to $10 million. Thomas stared at him. That's incredibly generous. It's necessary, Greg replied, looking at the twins. Every child deserves what you're giving these girls. Let's make sure more kids get that chance. That night, as Thomas tucked Sophie and Grace into bed, they were buzzing with excitement about all the people who wanted to help. We were just two scared girls on a park bench, Sophie said, her voice full of wonder. Now look at what's happening. All these people care. That's the thing about kindness, Thomas said, sitting on the edge of her bed. It spreads. One person helps another, and then that person helps someone else. It grows and grows until whole communities are changed. You two started something beautiful. No, Dad, Grace corrected him. You started it. You stopped when everyone else walked past us. Thomas felt tears in his eyes. She'd called him Dad without hesitation, without testing the word. It was natural now, real. We started it together, he said. And together, we're going to keep making a difference. Christmas morning was magical. Thomas had gone perhaps too far with decorations and gifts, but watching Sophie and Grace's faces made every penny worth it. They'd never had a Christmas like this, with a tree reaching the ceiling and stockings hung by a real fireplace. But the best gift wasn't wrapped in paper. That evening, as they sat around the tree eating cookies Rachel had made, Thomas pulled out a folder. "Girls, I want to show you something I've been working on," he said. "You've taught me so much about what's broken in the foster care system, and I think we can help fix it. What would you say if we started a foundation specifically designed to keep siblings together?" Sophie's eyes went wide. "A foundation? Like a real organization?" "A real organization," Thomas confirmed. "I'm committing $50 million to start. The Second Chances Foundation. It will provide financial support to families willing to foster or adopt multiple siblings. It will train social workers on the importance of keeping families together. And it will work with courts to prioritize sibling placement." Grace climbed onto Thomas's lap. "Can we help? Can we be part of it?" "I'm counting on you both to help," Thomas said. "You understand what kids in foster care need better than anyone. You can help us design programs that actually work." Over the next month, Thomas assembled a team. Beth Anderson agreed to be the foundation's director. Patricia Hayes handled legal incorporation. Jennifer Carson managed operations. And Sophie and Grace became the heart of the organization, participating in planning meetings and sharing their insights. Sophie stood up, her small voice clear in the courtroom. "Yes, Your Honor. Tom is already our dad. We just want the papers to say what our hearts already know." Judge Reynolds's expression softened slightly. "I see. Well, let's hear from the parties involved." Patricia presented the case methodically. Clean background checks, stable home environment, excellent school reports, glowing testimonials from social workers. The facts were indisputable. Thomas was an excellent foster parent providing everything the girls needed. But then the judge asked Thomas a question that wasn't in any paperwork. "Mr. Bennett, you're a billionaire with a demanding career. You could have helped these girls in many ways financially without taking on the responsibility of parenthood. Why adoption? Why not just be a benefactor from a distance?" Thomas stood, and for the first time that day, he didn't feel nervous. He knew this answer in his bones. "Your Honor, I could have written a check. I could have found them a good family and visited occasionally. But the moment I saw Sophie and Grace on that park bench, scared and alone, something changed in me. These girls didn't just need money or resources. They needed someone to choose them, to fight for them, to love them unconditionally. They needed a family." He paused, looking at the twins sitting beside him. "And honestly, Your Honor, I needed them too. I had success and wealth, but I didn't have purpose. I didn't have love. These girls taught me what really matters. They made me a better person. So yes, I want to adopt them. Not because I'm doing them a favor, but because they are doing me one. They made me a father." The courtroom was silent. Judge Reynolds looked down at her notes, then at the girls, then at the packed room of supporters. "Would anyone like to speak on behalf of this adoption?" she asked. Dozens of hands went up. The judge looked surprised but allowed Beth Anderson to speak first. Your Honor, I've been a social worker for 25 years, Beth said, standing. I've seen hundreds of placements. This is what every foster case story should look like, but so rarely does. Mr. Bennett didn't just give these girls a home. He gave them stability, love, advocacy, and hope. He changed his entire life to meet their needs. And through them, he's now changing the entire foster care system in Colorado. This adoption should absolutely be granted. Mrs. Patterson spoke next, then several neighbors, then Greg Peterson, who testified to Thomas's character. Each person painted a picture of a man who'd fully committed to fatherhood, who'd transformed from a busy executive to a present, engaged parent. Finally, the judge asked if Sophie and Grace wanted to say anything. The twins stood together, holding hands. Sophie spoke first. Your Honor, we never thought anyone would want us. We thought being orphans meant being alone forever. But Dad found us and proved that love is bigger than loss. He's patient when we have nightmares. He helps with homework even when he's tired. He came to every school event and cheered the loudest. He's our dad in every way that matters. Grace added, and because he helped us, now we're helping other kids. The foundation is keeping hundreds of siblings together. Dad taught us that one person choosing kindness can change everything. Please let us be a family forever. Please make it official. Judge Reynolds took off her glasses and wiped her eyes. In 20 years on the bench, she'd learned to stay professional and objective. But some cases touched even the most experienced judge. I've reviewed all the documentation, Judge Reynolds said. I've heard the testimonials. I've watched you three together in this courtroom. And I have to say, this is one of the clearest adoption cases I've ever seen. Mr. Bennett, you are clearly capable, committed, and caring. Sophie and Grace are thriving in your care. She paused, and Thomas's heart stopped. Therefore, it is my honor to grant this adoption. Effective immediately, Thomas Bennett is the legal father of Sophie Marie Bennett and Grace Elizabeth Bennett. Congratulations to your family. The courtroom erupted in applause and cheers. Sophie and Grace threw themselves into Thomas's arms, all three of them crying happy tears. Patricia wiped her eyes. Beth was sobbing openly. Even the court reporter was smiling. Judge Reynolds banged her gavel, laughing. Order, please. I still have 2 more cases today. But she didn't seem to mind this celebration. She came down from the bench to shake Thomas's hand and hug the girls. Be good to each other, she told them. You've built something special. Protect it. Outside the courthouse, the community threw an impromptu celebration. Someone had brought balloons. Helen from the cafe showed up with cupcakes. The girls ran through the crowd, accepting hugs and congratulations from everyone who'd supported their journey. Thomas stood back, watching them laugh and play. His daughters. Officially, legally, forever his daughters. The word felt right in his heart. Beth Anderson joined him, smiling. You did it. You really did it. We did it, Thomas corrected. None of this would have been possible without you. Without this community, without everyone who chose to help instead of looking away. That's the power of kindness, Beth said. It multiplies. You stopped for 2 girls, and now look at the ripple effect. Hundreds of children are being kept with their siblings because you cared. That's legacy, Thomas. Thomas looked at his daughters, his heart full. A year ago, he'd been a successful businessman with an empty house. Now he was a father with a full heart. And the best part? This was just the beginning. The adoption celebration that evening was held at Thomas's house, but calling it his house felt wrong now. It was their house, their home. The backyard was decorated with streamers and lights. Rachel had coordinated everything, working with a catering company to provide food for the 100+ guests who showed up. Sophie and Grace wore matching green sundresses, their choice, running through the crowd introducing everyone as our dad's friends and our neighbors and people from our foundation. The possessive words were precious. They finally belonged somewhere, to someone, completely. The Fletcher family, the older couple who'd come out of foster care retirement, arrived with a surprise. They'd just been approved to foster 3 siblings, brothers ages 6, 8, and 10, who'd been separated for over a year. The foundation's grant and legal support made it possible. We're bringing them home next week, and Fletcher told Thomas, her eyes shining. Those boys are going to be together again because of what you started. Because you showed everyone that it's possible to care. Thomas shook their hands, moved beyond words. This was what it was all about. Not his adoption, beautiful as that was, but the countless other families being formed and reunited. The party continued into the evening. As sunset approached, Thomas gathered everyone for a toast. He stood on the back deck, Sophie on one side and Grace on the other, both holding his hands. "A year ago, I thought I knew what success looked like," Thomas began. "I thought it was about business growth and financial metrics. Then I met two scared little girls on a park bench, and everything changed. Success isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in love. It's measured in second chances. It's measured in families coming together." He looked down at his daughters. "Sophie and Grace, you saved me as much as I saved you. You taught me about resilience and hope. You showed me what really matters. I am so proud to be your father, today and every day forward. Thank you for making me part of your family." Sophie hugged him tightly. "Thank you for stopping that night in the park. Thank you for seeing us when everyone else looked away." Grace added, "Thank you for showing us that love is real, that families can be built, and that we deserve to be together. You're the best dad in the world." The crowd applauded as Thomas raised his glass. To second chances, to new families, and to the community that makes it all possible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you for joining us in making sure every child has a chance at the love they deserve. Later, as the party wound down and guests departed, Thomas found himself in the kitchen with Beth Anderson. She was helping Rachel clean up, but Thomas stopped her. "Beth, I need to tell you something," he said. "The foundation is expanding. We're going national. I'm putting in another $50 million, and Greg Peterson's company is matching it. By next year, we'll be operating in 20 states. We're going to keep thousands of siblings together." Beth sat down, overwhelmed. "Thomas, that's incredible. That's going to change everything." "It's going to change some things," Thomas corrected. "But there will always be more work to do, more children who need help. That's why I'm also establishing an endowment. The foundation will be funded in perpetuity. Long after I'm gone, it will continue keeping siblings together and helping foster families." "You're really doing this," Beth said, shaking her head in amazement. "You're building something that will last forever." "I'm building a legacy for my daughters," Thomas said, watching Sophie and Grace play in the backyard with Mrs. Patterson's children. "I want them to grow up knowing that their story mattered, that their experience changed systems, that their pain led to purpose. And I want other children to have what they have now, hope, family, and a future." That night, after everyone left and Rachel went home, Thomas did his favorite part of the day, tucking his daughters into bed. He went to Sophie's room first, where she was already under the covers with a book. "Dad," Sophie said as he sat on her bed, "do you think Mama and Grandma would be happy about today? About us being adopted?" Thomas thought carefully about his answer. "I think they would be thrilled. Your Mama loved you more than anything, and your Grandma did everything she could to take care of you. They would want you to be happy, safe, and loved. I think they'd be grateful that you found a home." "I like to think they are watching," Sophie said quietly. "I like to think they know we're okay now." "I'm sure they do," Thomas said, kissing her forehead. "Good night, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too, Dad." In Grace's room, he found her already half asleep, clutching a stuffed elephant Rachel had given her months ago. "Dad," she murmured, "this was the best day of my whole life." "Mine too, Grace. Mine too. Are you sure we get to keep you? Forever and ever?" Thomas pulled her blanket up and stroked her hair. "Forever and ever. I'm your dad, you're my daughter, and nothing can change that now. You're stuck with me." Grace smiled sleepily. "Good. I like being stuck with you." As Thomas left her room, he paused in the hallway. A year ago, these bedrooms were empty. His life was empty. Now it was full of laughter, love, homework battles, and bedtime stories. It was full of purpose. He'd found two girls on a park bench and thought he was saving them. But the truth was simpler and more beautiful. They'd saved each other. They'd built a family from scratch, proving that love wasn't about biology or circumstances. Love was about choice, about showing up, about never walking past someone who needed help. Thomas walked to his own room, but before going to bed, he looked out the window at the backyard where they'd celebrated tonight. This house had been just a building before. Now it was a home. And these three people, brought together by chance and choice, were a family. The adoption papers would arrive in the mail next week, making everything official. But Thomas didn't need papers to know the truth. Sophie and Grace were his daughters. He was their father. They were a family. And that was all that mattered. 1 year after the adoption, the Second Chances Foundation had grown beyond Thomas's wildest expectations. Operating in 20 states, they'd helped 847 families keep siblings together. Over 2,300 children were in homes with their brothers and sisters instead of being separated. The foundation employed 50 full-time staff, trained hundreds of social workers, and partnered with courts across America. But the work that mattered most to Thomas happened every Tuesday evening, when he, Sophie, and Grace visited foster care group homes around Denver. They brought supplies, offered encouragement, and most importantly, shared their story. On this particular Tuesday, they visited Harbor House, a group home for children ages 5 to 12. 23 kids lived there, most waiting for foster placements. Thomas had visited dozens of these homes over the past year, but it never got easier seeing children in the system, wondering if anyone would choose them. Sophie and Grace, now 8 years old, walked into the common room with confidence. They'd done this enough times to know what to say and how to help. The group home kids gathered around, curious about these well-dressed girls who used to be just like them. "Hi, everyone," Sophie began, sitting on the floor so she was at eye level with the younger children. "My name is Sophie Bennett, and this is my sister Grace. A year and a half ago, we were living in a group home just like this one. We were scared. We thought nobody wanted us." Grace continued the story. The state was going to separate us and send us to different foster homes. So we ran away. We took our suitcases and sat on a park bench, not knowing what to do. The children listened with wide eyes. They knew that fear. They'd felt that despair. "But then our dad found us," Sophie said, gesturing to Thomas. "He was just taking a walk, and he could have ignored us like everyone else did that night. But he stopped. He asked if we were okay. And then he helped us. He became our foster dad, and then he adopted us. Now we have a real home, a real family, forever." A small girl, maybe 6 years old, raised a hand. "Did you stop being scared?" Grace thought about that. It took time. We had nightmares. We didn't trust that it was real. But our dad was patient. He showed up every day. He proved that he meant it. And slowly, we stopped being scared and started being happy. Thomas spoke next, addressing the children directly. "I want you all to know something important. Being in foster care doesn't mean you're not wanted. It means you're waiting for the right family to find you. And they will find you. There are people out there right now preparing homes for you, taking classes to become foster parents, hoping to meet you." He pulled out a box filled with care packages the foundation had prepared. "We brought you these today. But more importantly, I want to tell you about some good news. Because of our foundation, 12 more families in Denver have been approved to foster siblings. That means in the next month, at least 24 kids are getting homes together. Some of you in this room might be going to those families." The children's faces lit up with hope. That was the most important thing Thomas could give them. Hope that their situation wasn't permanent, that better days were coming. After the visit, as they drove home, Grace was quiet in the back seat. Thomas glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" "I was thinking about that little girl who asked if we stopped being scared," Grace said. "I remember being that scared. I remember thinking nobody would ever want us." Sophie reached over and took her sister's hand. "But someone did want us. Dad wanted us. And now we get to help other kids believe that someone will want them too." "That's exactly right," Thomas said. "We're taking our pain and turning it into purpose. We're making sure what happened to you doesn't happen to others." When they got home, Rachel had dinner waiting, and they ate together like they did every night, talking about their days, laughing at silly jokes, planning the weekend. This was normal now. This was family. After dinner, Thomas found a letter waiting for him in his home office. It was from the Fletcher family, the retired foster parents who'd been inspired by their story. He opened it, and a photo fell out. The photo showed Robert and Ann with 7 children of various ages, all smiling. Thomas read the letter. "Dear Thomas, Sophie, and Grace, we wanted to update you on our journey. After taking in those 3 brothers last year, we realized we had more love to give. We've now adopted those 3 boys and are fostering 4 more children, including 2 sets of siblings. Our house is loud and chaotic and absolutely perfect. You inspired us to come out of retirement, and now we're helping 10 children have a family. Thank you for showing us that it's never too late to make a difference. With gratitude, the Fletcher family." Thomas felt tears in his eyes. This was the ripple effect Beth had talked about. One act of kindness multiplying across countless lives. That weekend, the foundation held its annual gala. Over 1,000 people attended, raising $12 million in one night. The event celebrated families, showing videos of siblings reunited, featuring speeches from grateful parents, and highlighting the policy changes the foundation had helped achieve. Sophie and Grace gave the closing speech, standing on stage in matching red dresses, confident and poised. "We started as 2 scared girls on a bench," Sophie told the crowd. "Now we're part of a movement changing the foster care system across America. We've learned that love is powerful, that kindness matters, and that every person has the ability to change someone's life." Grace concluded, "If you see someone who needs help, don't walk past them. Stop. Ask if they are okay. Show them that someone cares. That's what our dad did for us, and it changed everything. Imagine what could happen if everyone chose kindness. Imagine how many children could find families. Imagine how much love could spread through the world." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Thomas watched from backstage, overwhelmed with pride. His daughters weren't just survivors anymore. They were advocates, leaders, and living proof that love could heal even the deepest wounds. Later that night, as they drove home through Denver, Sophie looked out the window at the city lights. "Dad, do you remember the exact spot where you found us? In the park." "I do," Thomas said. "Do you want to see it?" Both girls nodded. Thomas detoured to Washington Park, pulling into the parking lot. They walked through the evening air to the bench where everything began. Someone had placed a small memorial plaque on it now, reading, "The place where kindness changed everything," in honor of all foster children waiting for families. The 3 of them sat on the bench, Sophie on one side of Thomas, Grace on the other, just like that first night but completely different too. "I'm glad you stopped," Sophie said quietly, leaning against Thomas. "I'm glad you didn't walk past us." "I'm glad you let me help," Thomas replied. "I'm glad you trusted me even when you were scared." "Are you happy, Dad?" Grace asked, looking up at him. "Are we enough for you?" Thomas pulled both girls close. "You're more than enough. You're everything. You gave me purpose and joy and love. You made me a better person. I couldn't be happier." They sat there for a while, watching other families walk through the park. Somewhere in Denver, in America, in the world, there were other scared children waiting for someone to care. The foundation would help as many as possible. They'd keep changing policies, supporting families, and spreading hope. But it all started here, on this bench, with one person choosing to stop instead of walking past. With one person asking if 2 little girls were okay. With one person deciding that kindness mattered more than convenience. Sophie and Grace had been given a second chance at family, at happiness, at life. And now they were spending their lives making sure other children got second chances too. They were paying forward the love they'd received, multiplying it across thousands of lives. As they walked back to the car, Grace took Thomas's hand. "Dad, thank you for being our miracle." Thomas squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for being mine." They drove home together, a family built not by biology but by choice, not by circumstance but by love. And in homes across America, because of their story and their foundation, other families were being built the same way. One act of kindness had changed 3 lives, and those 3 lives were changing the world. The end.